What's up, everybody? SubX.News on the spot reporting. We're down here on 79th and Cottage Grove. It's 12:20 a.m. I believe it's January 24th, 2026. We just covered a shootout with the police. Suspect was shot. He shot somebody. The suspect shot a female. He was slashing her tires or something. But check this out. I've been noticing a whole bunch of abandoned buildings down here. You see all those buildings there? I'm going to show you all of this down here. We're just going to go up to 79th Street and we're going to make a U-turn over here. I covered a few shootings over here, right here on 79th and Cottage. You're going to see when I make a U-turn here, that whole building is abandoned there. You see that there? Look at that. That's all abandoned. There's abandoned buildings all on 79th Street. I'm going to show you over here too. All right, watch this. And at the shooting scene on Ingleside, I seen a whole bunch of abandoned apartment buildings. I'm pretty sure migrants were living in there because I seen a bunch of Hispanic looking men, light skinned guys. See, look at that. Look at that whole building abandoned there. That's a whole building abandoned. See that there? That whole building is abandoned. That whole half a block is abandoned there. You see that there? You got some more over here coming up. See that there? These are all boarded up here, man. See that? Boarded up. See that there? Boarded up. It's all messed up. Now you see this? Then you see that? That's all boarded up there. You see that there? I'll show you this over here, right? See that there? So we're going south on Cottage, right? Now that apartment is full there, it looks like. I don't know if that AutoZone's open, but I want to show you some over here by where the shooting happened. And I guess one question I have is, Brandon Johnson's been in power for what, 3 years now, right? Why hasn't he fixed this stuff? And what I noticed here is, like I said, there's a bunch of abandoned apartment buildings over here. You'll see them pretty fast. Watch, I'll show you real quick. Like I said, it was just a shootout with the police over here. Suspect got shot. He shot a female. I just seen a bunch of fire engines over here. Fire engine 122. See these apartment buildings here? This is Ingleside, right? This is where the block where the shooting happened. You'll see the cops up here. They're still blocking the road over here. You'll see, right? But when you start coming down here, you start to see a lot of shaded up buildings. You see that there? Now look at that side. There's abandoned buildings right there. You see that there? Those are all abandoned apartment buildings. See that there? That was abandoned. That one's abandoned. You see that there? Right there? That one's abandoned. It's like a lot. And then I guess, you know, a couple of things. I've been down here for a few crimes, but you always hear Brandon Johnson and his liberal buddies, they just gave away $40 million. There you go, man. There's something over there. I don't know. If they're squatting. Yeah, they're squatting in that one. You see that door open over there? They squat in these. They bust to open the door. And when we're over there on the shooting scene, there's 3 or 4 buildings over there that are opened up. They're abandoned. You can tell they're abandoned. I'm going to show you right over here. So I guess the reason I'm making this video, a couple of things, right? There's a bunch of crime happening here. As you see, that's where the officer involved shooting was, right down the street. There's a bunch of abandoned apartment buildings down Ingleside. But they keep talking about they don't have housing, but yet there's a bunch of housing down here that I see. They just don't want to fix it, right? Or the people don't want to live here? I don't understand. I'll show you. I'm going to go up this street right here, right? There's a whole bunch of buildings empty up here, right? I'll show you this. At least a couple of 100 units that I've seen over here. I already showed you a couple of buildings, right, that are abandoned. I mean, you add those up, there's 10 in each. Say there's 10 units in each building, right? So we've seen already 4 or 5 buildings, so that's 50 units. Why aren't you spending the money to teach people how to rehab those buildings, right? Look at that. That one's empty. See that one there? There you go. There's another one empty right there. That's what I'm talking about. Why isn't Brandon Johnson spending money on these buildings? Why isn't he working with the unions or some construction companies or the migrants or homeless or addicted or returning citizens? And why isn't he giving them money to fix these buildings down here? Why are we dealing with crime and murders, right? See that there? Here, look. That whole building's empty right there. You see that? That building's empty. That whole building's empty. There's a bunch of them empty down over here, right? See that building? That's empty down there. SubX.News on the spot reporting, 12:26 a.m. See that there? That's all empty. The cops are still over here. They might be opening. If they open this up, then I'll go down Ingleside. But there's a ton of buildings that are empty over here. But yeah, see, let me show you. That building's empty right there. I mean, I see at least 2 or 3 on each block. And these are huge apartment buildings. Again, why aren't we spending money to fix these buildings up? There's another one. How many have you guys counted? You see that there? Look at that huge building. How many units is that? See that there? See that one there? There you go. There's another one. See that there? That's all empty there. Why aren't we dealing with this stuff? Why are we spending $40 million with a pastor or a church so he builds brand new housing on his church property? Shouldn't we have separation of church and state? It's kind of strange, isn't it? I'm going to try to go this way. If I can go. No, you can't. The cops are still over there. And on that block, there's a bunch empty. I got them on my video. So, again, why aren't we spending money to fix up these abandoned buildings? And why aren't we using our human resources, veterans, returning citizens, even the migrants that aren't breaking the law? Why aren't we giving them the skills to fix these buildings, give them the money? Why are we giving them to crony preachers? Why are we giving them to crony contractors? Why did they just give like $80 million to the Congress Theater up in, what is that, Bucktown, Humboldt Park? You see that? This is all empty. We're repeating now here. See that there? Look. See that there? That's all abandoned. See that there? That's all abandoned. That's all abandoned. You see that there? Look, abandoned, abandoned, abandoned. They can even run businesses out of those buildings there. See that? That's all abandoned. That whole building is abandoned there. See that there? This is Cottage Grove. Why are we giving Congress Theater, a hooked up developer, $80 million in tax increments or whatever they just gave them? They just passed that into city council. Why aren't we fixing up the areas down here? That's strange, isn't it? And why aren't we teaching people how to fix these buildings so they can revitalize this area here, right? Why aren't we doing that? SubX.News on the spot reporting, 79th and Cottage.